I'm Stacey Riley, actor, model, and vocalist in Denver, Colorado, and I am so excited to be joining you on the Keith Andrew Network.
The whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. So prove to them it can still amount to something. So hashtag break the labels. 27 minutes of your time, PG, PG-13, but it is uncensored, so you do have the right to say how you feel and how you want to address the audience. But it's a family show, but I'm not putting words in your mouth. You can just express yourself however you want. So the first thing I want to start off is you are a professional actress, model, and voiceover teacher. So the first one I want to ask you is acting, of course. What attracted you to begin your career as a professional actress? Sorry.
That's a good question. I think it's because I was raised on a lot of film. My dad was really into film. He showed us a lot of interesting artistic film growing up. He didn't really have boundaries sometimes as far as like whether it was too soon. He'd let us watch pretty mature content as relatively young adults or even children or adolescents, and mostly because he felt like it was an artistic expression. So he would a lot of times, be like, listen to how this actor delivers this line, or, ooh, you got to see this scene. It's so great. And tell us why he thought that. And so he was really into film and music, and he did theater when he was in high school. So as I was growing up, I was very, very shy. And I guess I never really thought I would be an actor or a singer, but maybe in the back of my mind, I always thought how wonderful it would be. And then later on in my life, as I moved to Colorado from Michigan, I had done one commercial in Michigan just almost as a favor to this venue that my ex-husband was working for. And they needed someone to play the bride in their commercial. And so they asked if I would do it. And I said, sure. And I had so much fun. And I had done some theater in college. So when I moved to Colorado, I decided to do more theater, read a bunch of Shakespeare, and try to get an agent. And I got an agent rather quickly. And I guess the rest is history. I've been acting ever since. And that was 2005.
Oh, absolutely. 2005, I was a junior in high school.
Wow.
And, that's funny, I also started the Keith Andrew Network. It wasn't the Keith Andrew Network, the name. My high school had a radio station, and it could have been something, I still kick myself about it, because they had a TV show. The quick highlight about it is they had the TVs in these rooms. And like, why don't we capitalize on that? Why don't we use that? And like, oh, you have to talk to the assistant principal and the PTA. You have to do this and do that. I'm not the same person who I was about 15, 16 years ago as I am now. If I was, then I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But I had a radio show. It wanted a name, so the show was the Keith Andrew Network. Well, mine fired on that. But it was called Keith Andrew, the Keith Andrew Show, the Keith Andrew Extreme Power Hour, Extreme Tuesday. It was all these different names. And I really wished I had these on tape. But, what I should have could as a learning experience. But long story short, I got sick out of it. A couple of years later at a retail, a lot of BS in that, telling you another time. But that was a learning experience. But look at when you started in 2005 and look at what I did in 2005. Both of us came a long way, especially you, with everything you accomplished. You definitely came a long way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like we both have a similar past where maybe we weren't too sure of ourselves or we're shy or whatever. And then, it's funny how something just kind of, maybe at some point when you get tired of it, you get tired of being shy, you get tired of not doing the things that your heart tells you to do, that you feel compelled to do. And you're just like, well, you know what? Screw it. I'm going for it. I'm doing this. And yeah, of course, there's going to be bumps and there's going to be rejection and there's going to be, a lot of learning experiences, but that's really all those things are, is chances to grow, get better, become stronger, more courageous. And at some point you just start getting used to it and you start to feel like, you know what? I guess I'm a pro now. It's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. And you are episode 894. So let's go back as we went back in time to 1995. 1995 will be in my next episode. As we went back to 2005, let's go back into 1994. The one thing I remember about 94 was WrestleMania 10. You had, Spider-Man and the X-Men. Of course, I'm the youngest out of 4 brothers and 1 sister. I got to enjoy everything they enjoyed in life. But how that relates to you is, what were you doing in 1994?
Well, I was still living in Michigan, and I was probably still, I was at home. I was a teenager. And I wasn't doing a whole lot more than maybe just going to school. Certainly didn't know where my life was headed. It's so surprising sometimes. I always say, if as a child, someone showed me my life now, I don't know that I would believe it. Because as you said, I'm almost a different person. I think that young child, because our formative years of our brain are from birth to 5 years old. And so that's when we kind of develop our personality. And so we know it's there and we know that child will always live inside of us. But at the same time, it's just amazing how we grow and expand, and our experiences inform our new selves. And it's truly a matter of, wow, looking back, or if I were able to have a crystal ball, if somebody said to me as a child or even a teenager, what do you think you'll be doing in the next 10 years or 15 years? I never would have said, oh, I'm going to be a TV commercial actor with, almost 100 spots under my belt and have done print modeling and live in Colorado. There's no way. If somebody said, do you think that would be you? I'd be like, that's not me. That's somebody else.
No, absolutely. It's all about proving people wrong, breaking that stereotype. But the one thing I do want to say is, are you wearing like a wireless mic? Because while you were talking, there was some background noises.
No, but a plane just flew overhead.
Hey, don't worry about it.
Sorry.
I just wanted to point that out. But the other question, going back to the first one, you mentioned a model and you are good looking. So the first question I want to ask you is, what attracted you to begin your career as a model and as a voiceover teacher?
Well, the funny thing about modeling is I never really thought of myself as a model. I was a tomboy, and again, I was really shy, and I always saw myself as kind of awkward. And my sister was like really popular and really into fashion and all this stuff. So she was always kind of more into the idea of modeling. But strangely enough, when I was in high school, a friend of ours, her mom opened a small modeling agency in Flint, Michigan. That's where I'm from. And she opened this agency. And so the friend came to a bunch of us in school and said, hey, my mom really needs models for her new agency. Will you go by there? And so, sorry, there's another airplane flying over. So she asked if we would go by. So we were like, oh, okay. And we went, and there happened to be a photographer there who was scouting new talent. And she said to me, oh, you should be modeling. And I was like, me? And she's like, yes, absolutely, blah, blah, blah. Well, at the time I had braces, and she said, I want to take some pictures of you. There's going to be this convention in Detroit, and I really think you should go to it. It's a model search that's nationwide, but you need photos, and I'll, take some photos, blah, 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 blah. So we did the photos. She didn't have me show my teeth at all. I just was closed-mouthed the entire shoot. We went to the convention, and lo and behold, it was kind of a cattle call type thing. So you wear a number and they watch you on the runway, and you walk by with like your pictures, and it's, again, you're just a number. And then at the end of the whole thing, at the end of the weekend, they overhead basically say, they call a number, and that's your number. And then they say, please visit these agencies. And they list the agencies who want to see you. And I got called back by over a dozen agencies, and I was just like, what? I was just so mind blown. And so I ended up talking to a bunch of them and signing with one of them in Chicago. I didn't actually end up going, though, because I was only 15, and my parents were like, you're not going anywhere. You're finishing school. So by the time I finished school, I was really more interested in getting a college degree. I really wanted to go do the modeling thing just because I think mostly I was intrigued, curious, and flattered. But in the end, another side of me kind of took over, and I was like, I think the smart thing to do would be to go to college. So I didn't end up going to Chicago. I got my undergrad degree in psychology instead. And, but from then on, I realized, oh, I do have this look for modeling that is valued by people in the industry across the nation. Maybe I should be doing something with this. So I didn't do a whole lot. But after I moved to Colorado, when I was looking for that acting agent, as I was visiting these agencies, one of the agents said, we have a modeling side of this agency too, so you can be doing both. And I said, well, I'm not really that interested in modeling. I'm really more interested in getting my acting career going. And she says, Stacey, I get that, but you're in Denver. There's not a whole lot of work here for actors. There's only so much. So any bit of talent work that you can do that's related, you should just do it. And I was like, good point. So I ended up just doing both. I signed with that agency. That was Donna Baldwin Agency. I was with them for over a decade. And that agent was Kathleen Ham. She's now with Radical Artists. Well, she co-owns Radical Artists. And I was with Kathleen for a long, long time as my media agent, my acting agent. But I started doing modeling then kind of more seriously. And it was mostly just print modeling, not so much fashion, like lifestyle print. And it just ended up being, at least half of the work that I was doing for talent work. So I guess she was right.
Absolutely. Actually, I haven't asked this part of the subject as a way because I've been reading off the script. But going back to my old questions, were you a study nerd or party animal when you were in college?
More of a study nerd. I've always been a nerd. I've always been kind of, I have like a really, really goofy, silly side that used to only come out if I was really comfortable around people. Now it comes out a lot easier, but I also have a very heady side. I'm really curious, and I was always very studious throughout school, mostly in high school and college. I was very studious. So luckily, some of my friends in college were music majors and theater majors. And so that broke me out of my shell and got me to do more fun stuff.
Did you ever become like a member of one of those fraternities? And what did you major in?
I majored in psychology. I had a minor in French. I took a ton of theater classes, a ton of music classes, but didn't get any degrees in those things. And I was never in any kind of sorority or anything like that.
What about, did you ever do one of those human pyramids, or you're not into the whole human pyramid stuff?
I've never done a human pyramid.
Would you be up for it, or is not your forte?
I don't think it's necessarily my thing.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it.
I've done yoga.
I love that stuff. I'm a loser.
You're not a loser. We all like different things.
So we got the fun questions out of the way. Now, going back to the hard-hitting ones, besides me, obviously, have you worked with people with disabilities? And I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's how I act in anyway. So let's take the big elephant out of the room. Have you worked with people with disabilities? And are you willing to work with people with disabilities?
So in my professional life, I haven't worked with very many people with disabilities, when I was growing up, my dad's career was that he was an instructional aide in the classroom for severely mentally impaired adults, young adults. So as we were growing up, we had a lot of exposure to people with, it was a heavier than just a learning disability. It was severe mental impairment. We went into the classroom a couple of summers. We volunteered, my sister and I. When I keep saying we, it's my sister and I, volunteered at my dad's school for the whole summer, 2 summers. And because we were off of school. And then we also had, so my dad did respite care, where we would have some of those adults come to our home for the evening. He would do dinner and, we would all just hang out. So we had a couple of different of his clients like that we got actually quite close with. And then at one point, he and my stepmom fostered a young woman who was severely mentally impaired. And her name was Tanya, and she became like a sister to us. So we got very close with Tanya. But as far as working like in workplace, people with disabilities, I shouldn't say I haven't, because you don't always know. But as far as I know, not so much. But of course I'm willing to, yes.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned you're a teacher for teaching voiceovers. What can you tell us about that?
So actually, I'm more of a voice singing teacher because I'm also a singer. And so when I was in my performing arts career, which I'm still doing some of that, but I also have a full-time day job now. So it's a lot of juggling. But before COVID and everything was shutting down, I did a lot of music. I had a jazz trio, a jazz quartet, a jazz duo, which I still have, but because of COVID, we're not really doing a whole lot right now. Plus, he just had his second baby. So, but I teach voice as in singing.
Well, voiceover, because a lot of people who do voiceovers, that opens a door so many different things, because it helps you control the volume of your voice. You can go high, you can go low, but if you can master your, I don't want you to be a master of anything, but I know that's a bad joke. But if you can master your voice and you open that door, you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I did voice. It's really funny because when I first signed with Kathleen at Donna Baldwin Agency, she said, I just moved here from Michigan. And she said, okay, well, I really like your readings, because she had me read a couple scripts. She's like, I really like your readings. I want to sign you on here. We'll have to start you with on camera. You won't be able to do voiceover until you lose your accent. And I was like, my accent? I don't have an accent. She's like, oh yeah, you do. So apparently I had a Midwestern accent. So I didn't do voiceover for the first couple of years that I was acting professionally. But then I finally just naturally lost the accent and have done radio spots for various clients over the years. And I really enjoy doing voiceover. It is really fun. And then, I think it is true if you're singing and having to do different styles of singing. Like I've sung rock and roll, I've sung pop, I've sung jazz. And as you're learning all those styles and how to change your voice, then you do become, I think, more informed as a voiceover artist as far as how do I control this instrument and how should I breathe and that sort of thing.
No, absolutely. Actually, I was going to say something stupid, but I think you're
there's nothing stupid.
I was going to say you're very cute, and I like you. So I usually ask you this off the air, but how do you feel about volunteer work?
Oh, I think volunteer work is wonderful. It's funny you'd ask that because it's been on my mind a lot lately. I got COVID-19 back in March of 2020. And I've had health issues from that ever since. It's been up and down. So unfortunately, I've had to be very picky and choosy about what I do with my time, because it's kind of a conservation of energy. Yeah. And so prior to that, I was one of those people who would do a million things at the same time and somehow manage to juggle it all. And I have a brother who's an entrepreneur who's very much like that too. But he would be like, Stacey, I do not know how you do all of this. How are you doing all of this at the same time? And I was always just like, I don't know. I want to do this and I want to do that. And I was into everything all the time. Now, because I have the full-time day job and I'm still doing some acting on the side, etc., I've been very careful about like, okay, what else can I commit to without putting my health at potential jeopardy, but also B, not overcommitting and then letting people down.
No, I agree. I have an idea I've been playing with. I'm like, oh, this is all out there. I was thinking, wouldn't it be, I like giving people opportunities on my show. And I was thinking, I want to change up the format. I want to be more interactive. Wouldn't it be really nice? Because I have a lot of brand ambassadors. So I would actually just another thing I want to ask you if you'd be interested in that. But I'm thinking, because I butcher people's names, I'm good at talking. I have diarrhea in the mouth. But I was thinking, why not give more people opportunities? So I was going to say, how would you feel about being my Keith Andrew Network and narrator? I can't pay you, but you can use it on your resume. You can use it for credit. Would that be something you would be interested in? You know how you watch, Bill Maher doesn't really do it, but you watch one of those comedy shows and you're like the hostess. Like you would introduce the guests, like, okay, now down over to our host, Keith. Would that be something?
Yeah, like the announcer.
Yes.
On the show.
Would that be something you'd be interested in, or?
I'd be interested in learning more about what kind of commitment it would be. Because again, I don't want to commit and then let anybody down. So we would have to talk more about all that. But yeah, sounds like fun. I'd definitely be interested in learning more.
No, absolutely. You definitely talked about it off the air. The other question I want to ask you, I want you to be brutally honest. This is an old question, how I usually wrap up the show. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what was your honest opinion reading it? What made you say yes? And how do you feel now? Would you recommend it to other people? Brutally honest.
Here it comes. Just kidding. You better hold on to your hat. No, I didn't really have a strong opinion, to be honest, at first. I was just like, oh, who is this? What is he doing? What is he talking about? What is this show? I was also a little flattered because I was like, oh, that's nice. Someone wants to interview me. That's cool. Because, what you're doing is a service and it gives people exposure and you're being curious about their lives. And I think that's nice. As far as the process, I wasn't too sure what to expect just because I didn't know you at all. So when you don't know someone, you're like, are they going to be professional? Are they going to, be rude? Are they going to be friendly? Are they going to, all these things, organized, disorganized? But I thought that you were really good about inquiring and then proposing what we would do and what time and that sort of thing, or how long it would take. And then giving me the space to, process and do whatever life craziness is making me do. And then you came back not too soon, but you came back maybe a week or two later and were like, what do you think about this? And touched base again. And I like that because people do need little nudges because they're just so overwhelmed and busy. And I think a lot of times people take that as, oh, they're not interested or they don't like me. When really it's just like, oh yeah. I forgot. Oh, it's crazy. So I think it was good that you reached out a couple of times. I didn't feel like it was high pressure or anything, but I felt like you were inviting me to join you on something that you value. So that was nice. And I liked your release. Yes, everybody, there's a release form. But your release form is very straightforward. It's short. It's very easy to understand. It doesn't feel like there's anything hidden or weird agendas in there. So I liked that. And then, you gave me this cool background. It was really easy and I would recommend it.
No, I really appreciate it. Reason for I can tell you off the air, but I didn't actually write the permission form. I interviewed a lawyer and I had my own form like, oh, my name's Keith Andrew. Do I have permission to interview you? It sounds nice, but if you want, I can write you something more professionally. Personally, I don't really read things, like, okay, I will get that one thing. He said he wrote down okay, what it's about, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you know what? I don't need to read it. It was done by a lawyer. He knows what he's doing. So that's a professional form, But yes, doing this for 8.5. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I can tell because I've signed a lot of releases as an actor. And oftentimes there's language in there that basically is like, you're giving away the farm. If you say yes to this, basically they can do whatever they want with that in perpetuity for the rest of your life, like until, whatever. And some of that kind of hidden language, or it can be sophisticated enough that maybe a lot of actors or just general average person wouldn't really know what they're agreeing to. So I had my eye out for some of that, but it wasn't like that. So.
Oh, I agree. I do have a couple questions for you off the air, but wrapping up, how can our fans and listeners follow you on social media? Are you on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram?
Yes. So I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Insta, but it's kind of a mix of like personal and acting stuff. But on Instagram, you can find my music, my jazz duo. We're called T for Two. So on Instagram, it's just T and then the number's 42, T for Two. And so that's on Instagram. On Facebook, I'm just under Stacey Riley. And on LinkedIn, I'm also just under Stacey Riley, STACEYRILEY.
Oh, absolutely. Now stay tuned for Off the Air. But for our viewers, if you're watching on Facebook, make sure to hit that notification icon. You will be notified. Make sure to leave comments. I love interacting with my fans, something I've been working on. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that bell icon. You'll be notified when brand new content. It's available on a YouTube channel. Again, like, share, comment. But wrapping up, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. And I'm looking forward to part 2 down the road. I just want to say thank you. And until we meet again, I catch you later.